A lot's been made in the last couple of days since the Chicago Bears' most recent loss, an embarrassing loss at that to the Kansas City Chiefs, asking if Ryan Poles should stay on as the Chicago Bears head coach. Well, one of you guys in the comment section mentioned we should also be evaluating Ryan Poles. So on today's episode, we're going to take a look at almost every deal Ryan Poles has made since taking over the Chicago Bears. We'll look at all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host here, Haize, holding it down for C-Dub and Bobby. Make sure you guys are following the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. We're going to take a look at almost every move Ryan Poles has made, both in free agency and the draft, right, since he's taken over the team. And we're not going to really because it can get pretty deep and detailed if we look at like other players that went around that area. We may talk about that some in some of these spots, but ultimately we're going to take a real good look at all these, everything that Ryan Poles has done since he's taken over the Bears, right? And so we're going to start with the 2022 draft, right? This was a draft in which Ryan Poles, everybody thought that the Chicago Bears were going to go wide receiver. We ended up not going with like a player like George Pickens, and we ended up selecting Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, Velus Jones, Braxton Jones, Dominique Robinson, and, some other players. J. Tyree Carter, we got in that as well. Doug Kramer. We also got Trenton Gill, our punter, in there. And so when you really look at this draft class, right, Kyler Gordon, who had a very rough start of the season last year, right, and, really came on pretty good towards the back end of that season. But, recent hand injury there. The soonest he'll be back this season is week 6. And even though this was a spot where many Bears fans, including me, C-Dub, and Bobby, really thought that the Bears were going to go wide receiver, he decided to pivot and go cornerback and go with a player like Kyler Gordon, who was an athletic beast, graded out really well in every athletic measurable. Now, I'm not really too concerned with Kyler Gordon here, right? I do think that, he's going to be good. I think moving to the nickel is going to be really good for him. But when you see George Pickens, right, and how good he's looked, especially at times, I don't think George Pickens has looked like a world beater at all. But it does bring about some questions here with this draft pick. But I think Kyler Gordon, I have faith in it. I think Kyler Gordon's going to really turn it on. And I think we're going to see a really good player over the course of Kyler Gordon's career. But he's always going to be compared, right, to what George Pickens does. The next one up in the second round as well was Jaquan Brisker, right? Now, Jaquan Brisker had an amazing rookie season. I really like what Jaquan Brisker has done. It's been a rocky start so far in the sophomore season, and he seems like he's going to have problems staying healthy. Now, let's hope that, that concern proves not to be valid, right? And he really does. But right now, I'm starting to be concerned with the long-term health. Almost every game so far this season, Jaquan Brisker has had something, a ding-up or something like that. So really still high on Jaquan Brisker, but have some concerns around him specifically with that health. Velus Jones, to me, Velus is what it is. And I know some Bears fans still hold out hope for Velus, but the way that I look at it, Velus Jones is a bust. That's the way I look at it as a third-round pick. Some of the other players around it, I have Velus Jones as a bust, but hey, it is what it is there. Braxton Jones. Now, Braxton Jones went down with injury, really looked good in the second half of his rookie year as well. Really, the penalties more so than anything so far has really hurt him and the team the most, but, we'll see. He could be done for the season. There is some rumors there that he could be done for the season, but let's be clear. The penalties that he's suffered have been awful. But otherwise, it's been pretty solid for Braxton Jones. But again, when you get that out the 5th round, the quality that you got in Braxton Jones, I really like the quality that we got there. But again, something that you can look at as well. Dominique Robinson. Now, this is a guy who I had so much hope for him last year when he was a depth piece, right? And then, when he moved into that starting lineup, it's been a lot more down than it has been up for him. And we look at the fact that, we kept him over players like Terrell Lewis, Travis Gibson. There's big questions there with Dominique Robinson. And I don't look at Dominique Robinson as a player that is ever going to be a starter. Now, he could be a quality bench piece, right? But when you really look, especially Terrell Lewis, like Terrell Lewis didn't look amazing either, but he looked better than Dominique Robinson. Really was surprised to let Terrell Lewis go. Now, Travis Gibson, I know some people keep going to that. I'm not too surprised with the Travis Gibson part of it just because of what we've heard and things like that. I know he came out and said he didn't actually request a trade, but I didn't expect once that came out for Travis Gibson to stick around here. But then you have players like Doug Kramer, is an upside player. We really haven't gotten to see a lot of him either. J. Tyree Carter is a guy that I really like in his snaps as well. I don't know if he's ever going to project to be a starter, but as a depth piece, I like as well. And then Trenton Gill, for a 7th-round pick, Trenton Gill's looked damn good as a punter. So, there you go. So that's Ryan Poles' first NFL draft. And then when you look at his free agent signings from 2022, Gary Blasingame, who's still around, did pretty good in pass blocking. Cruikshank, who is no longer on the roster, I believe. Justin Jones, on Justin Jones. Trevor Siemian, he's up out of there. Byron Pringle on a 1-year prove deal, he's up out of there. Equinemius St. Brown, listen, he's right now looking at Velus Jones being active over him, and I just called Velus Jones a bust. Equinemius St. Brown, Al-Qawadin Muhammad. Why did I murder his name? No, bounce, out. Patrick Scales. No. Nicholas Morrow. No. Lucas Patrick. Goddamn, Lucas Patrick is absolutely terrible. Dakota Dozier, not around anymore, right? So, again, this is one of, when you really look at the free agent class of last year for Ryan Poles, and we knew it was a lot of 1-year prove-it deals. It was a lot of players in that list that we didn't expect to be long-term for the Chicago Bears. Byron Pringle said a lot of the right things, right? Came like that, didn't really do or make any impact for the Chicago Bears at all. I think he is on another roster, though, but he's not on this one. Justin Jones, he's still here, and Justin Jones isn't terrible, right? I want to be clear on that, but I think overall, the lack of productivity from our defensive line and Justin Jones being a vet there, you have to look at some of that as well. It's been, at best, kind of mediocre when you look at that. And so, Lucas Patrick, signing looks awful. Equinemius St. Brown, signing doesn't look good. So, again, this is quite a bit of question. And then when you also look at trading for Chase Claypool, which right now, that trade looks like we absolutely got fleeced in that deal, right? They wanted to get Justin Fields some help, but Chase Claypool has been an absolute bust of a trade for the Chicago Bears. So, right there, listen, this is where you start being able to get really mad at Ryan Poles. But again, I think that the framework of a lot of these deals weren't meant to be long-term successes for the Chicago Bears outside of Chase Claypool, but you still got to hold him accountable. A lot of these were misses, right? The players that are still around on this roster, even with that said, are kind of mediocre. So again, you got to look at that with Ryan Poles and say, hey, there's some big questions there. Now, as far as the draft for the 2023 draft, Darnell Wright has been great. He's been great. Listen, he's made normal rookie mistakes, right? It hasn't been perfect. It's never going to be perfect for a rookie. But listen, he's been one of the best rookie offensive tackles, period, so far this season, even with a offensive line that has not looked overall good at all. Had a really, really good game week 1 against the Packers overall, right? He played pretty bad against the Buccaneers, but again, a lot of positive to take on that. And it was okay against the Kansas City Chiefs. When it comes down to it, right, I say this, Jalen Carter, I know a lot of Bears fans are going to look at that, and based on the production that he's given, it's okay, right? But Darnell Wright was not a bad pick for the Chicago Bears at all, and he definitely is going to be a player that is going to pay off and show that he was the right pick in the first round for the Chicago Bears. Javon Dexter, it's been a mixed bag for Javon Dexter, right? Because he hasn't looked terrible, right? He hasn't been able to get off as quickly as what some people have wanted him to be. And it's some learning on the fly for Javon Dexter. And I think that is something that, it's going to take a little bit while. Some players it takes a little bit longer on, but there have been flashes of that from Javon Dexter, of what we want him and need him to be. I feel pretty confident right now in Javon Dexter. Tyreek Stevenson, listen, Tyreek Stevenson has gotten picked on, as most rookie cornerbacks do, right? That's not exclusive to Tyreek Stevenson. Hell, Kyler Gordon went through it last year, right? And so, I know some Bears fans were hoping that the Bears were going to take John Michael Schmitz there, and Schmitz being a center and at a position of need. You can look at to some question marks there, right? I think that Schmitz has played pretty good for the Giants as well. So, you have that. We could absolutely use a young, promising center here on this roster. But here's what I'll say. I'm not down on Tyreek Stevenson, but I'm not up either. Right now, I'm kind of in the middle of the pack on Tyreek Stevenson, but I do think that he has the right mindset. He has the right mentality. He has the right physical gifts, and I think he has the right skill set. I think we're going to be okay with Tyreek Stevenson. I think at the end of the day, he's going to prove to be a good, solid pick for the Chicago Bears. But again, it's some question marks right now, especially when you look at comparing him to a player like Schmitz, who a lot of Bears fans did want. Next up is Zach Pickens. Zach Pickens, it's been up and down for Zach Pickens as well. He's been grading out pretty well for the Chicago Bears so far, Some people look at other players that the Bears could have won. Like I said, we're not really going to get into that. Maybe at the end of the season when we do an evaluation on the draft, we'll take a look at some other things like that. But listen, I overall think that Zach Pickens has done a pretty damn good job as he's been used as a depth piece so far for the Chicago Bears, right? So, there's other players and people that you could have selected that maybe have had, better so far starts to the season, which again, I think we also need to look at the coaching and how that's hurt and maybe lack the progression for a lot of these players as well. But listen, I feel pretty confident in Zach Pickens personally. I feel pretty confident in there. Next up, Roschon Johnson with the 4th round pick. Let's be here. It's a win. It was a win there. What he's done so far, what he's shown, making a player that can still be productive like D'Onta Foreman be completely not needed for the Chicago Bears. Roschon Johnson has shown his vision. He's shown that he can break tackles. Everything that we want to see from Roschon Johnson, he showed. And I think most people agree that Roschon Johnson is going to be the starting running back for the Chicago Bears at some point in time. Now, you have other players that we look at as well. Noah Sewell, Tyler Scott in that as well. Terrell Smith, Noah Powell, right? This is I'm pretty confident in these guys. Like I've said before, and I know not everyone's going to want to hear this, I actually feel really confident on most of the selections that the Chicago Bears made in the 2023 draft. I just think that we don't have the right coaching staff to get what we need to get out of them. But overall, I think that we did pretty damn good in the 2023 draft. That's my personal opinion. And then when we look at the free agency for the 2023 free agency, Nathan Peterman, Dylan Cole, right? D'Onta Foreman, who's now inactive. But again, when they signed him, they didn't know that they were going to be able to get Roschon Johnson. So I don't really hold that against him because I still think D'Onta Foreman can be a productive player. Robert Tonyan, we haven't gotten to see a lot of Robert Tonyan, right? Not as much as I kind of expected so far. PJ Walker, who we gave a guaranteed contract to, who we then had to cut. So that's definitely an L. Travis Homer, haven't really used him too much either. DeMarcus Walker has been, at best you can say mid. Tremaine Edmonds, who's been productive as far as getting a nice amount of tackles, but his PFF grade, which isn't everything, it leaves much to be desired in that. When you look at Tremaine Edmonds and Nate Davis, two of the biggest signings that we made in this offseason, right, that we gave the most money to, and they signed the longest contracts as well. Listen, Tremaine Edmonds, I trust, is going to come out of it. Nate Davis right now, he signed a 3-year deal, and I get it, he lost his mom, and I do not want to take any of that away, but production on the football field, we haven't seen it as of yet, right? And you also look at TJ Edwards, been solid. We know what we got. Yannick Ngakoue, a 1-year signing, a 1-year prove-it deal. He's been very mid to bad, right, if you want to be honest. Mercedes Lewis, overall right now, right, what we're looking at is a Ryan Poles who has, right, it's been a very questionable acquisition period. And then you also have to look at Ryan Poles and say, like, I know some people are like, well, Matt Eberflus, he didn't actually hire Matt Eberflus. He had the final decision. And thus, I don't care if George or whoever else conducted the interviews, you should have made a better decision. And now it's on you. George is gone, right? It's on you to make a decision. So what you do with the next head coach, I'll give you the Matt Eberflus. I'll give you that. The next head coach hire that the Chicago Bears bring in, that's completely on Ryan Poles, and you have to get that right if you want to try to really still do anything or develop any of these talents. Overall, Ryan Poles has had, much like any GM, he's had questionable moves, he's had good moves, he's had some ones that I think are really upside moves that we won't be able to see the full value in for a handful of years. But right now, everything has gotten the Bears to this point, and the point that we are now is that we have been a worse football team. And everything isn't on the players. Everything isn't on Ryan Poles. Everything isn't on the coaching staff. But right now, we got to figure some stuff out. When you open as a underdog at home against a team that gave up 70 points last week in the Denver Broncos, there's some problems. And so the Bears have to take a long, hard look at a lot of things. And Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles, it's up to y'all to try to turn this around. Right now, the Chicago Bears are slated to have 2 top 5 picks next season. And we'll see what happens with that. Tons of questions right now surrounding the Chicago Bears, and ones that, listen, I don't know, man. Like I said, Tremaine Edmonds is a player that he's gotten a lot of good numbers, but he had the needed impact, right? One of the reasons that we brought him here was his pass coverage. That grades out as absolutely terrible. Yannick Ngakoue, has everything that we've heard as far as concerns for Yannick Ngakoue, that's been there as well, right? It's a lot of questions around this team, and let's hope that we start seeing some better answers for those questions starting this week against the Denver Broncos. Let me know what you guys think on everything down below. Make sure you're following the show at Bull Central Pod. Oh, wrong show. Make sure you follow the show at Shy Bear Central on every social media platform we're on. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, shybearcentral@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related. And like we like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.